If my beauty is a curse, then let it be the light that guides this village back to hope. I will not let this pain define me or destroy us."
Her enchanting beauty brings no happiness, only drawing lustful stares and blind desires. One by one, the men of the village lose themselves, spiraling into a vortex of desire and selfishness. Can Amara break the curse? What will she do to awaken lost souls and rediscover the true essence of love? Don't miss this emotional journey. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below to uncover the secrets behind this deadly beauty. Once upon a time, in a distant coastal village, there lived a mermaid named Amara. She was the jewel of the ocean, possessing an enchanting beauty with skin that shimmered like pearls and long black hair flowing like the currents of the sea. Her eyes held the depth of the ocean itself, gleaming with wisdom and mystery. The villagers often spoke of her as a legend, yet none suspected that Amara silently watched them from the distant waves. She was not only curious about the human world, but she also yearned to understand their emotions, their joys, and their sorrows. Amara would often sit atop moss-covered rocks, quietly observing families gathered together, their laughter echoing across the fishing village. At times, she would lightly touch the water, letting the ripples carry away her wandering thoughts. Yet deep within her heart, Amara felt an inexplicable void, a loneliness she could not fully understand. One day, a group of fishermen inadvertently overfished, damaging coral reefs that were home to countless sea creatures. The sea god, protector of the ocean, unleashed his wrath. The waves roared and the earth trembled. Although Amara was not directly responsible, her deep connection to the sea made her the target of his fury. In a voice that echoed throughout the depths, the sea god pronounced a curse. "You desire to understand the human world? Then live among them, but in a form you will not wish for. Your beauty shall be a curse for which you must pay the price." Amara collapsed amidst the raging waves, her body transforming as her shimmering tail gave way to human legs. But the most terrifying part was her appearance, now overwhelmingly alluring with an exaggerated, impossible beauty, especially her unnaturally ample bust. No one could resist her charm. She appeared on the shore, her soft glowing skin gleaming under the sun, her long hair cascading like silk, and her face as sharp as a sculpture. Yet her eyes brimmed with fear and helplessness. At first, the villagers were stunned by the sight of this strange woman. Every man's gaze fell upon Amara, filled with desire and fascination. They were drawn to her, not out of kindness or hospitality, but by an uncontrollable lust. Their stares were like sharp blades, tearing apart the remnants of Amara's dignity. Amara could feel herself being surrounded, her fear creeping into every breath. She couldn't escape, nor fight the irresistible pull of her cursed allure. The men grew more obsessed, abandoning their work and their families. The once peaceful fishing village descended into chaos. Each time she saw those lustful eyes, Amara felt her heart being torn apart. She questioned herself. Why has this beauty become a burden? Why can no one see my pain? Her loneliness grew unbearable, her fear blending with self-loathing. She could no longer recognize her reflection in the water. All she saw was a stranger trapped in an impossibly beautiful yet hollow form. During the long nights, Amara would sit silently by the shore, letting the waves soothe her. Her tears mixed with the salty ocean breeze as she whispered, "If this is the price of curiosity, I will find a way to break it. I cannot let this curse destroy me or this village." But how could she undo a curse born from the wrath of a god? Amara did not know. All she knew was that she must start with the men who were losing themselves. And from the depths of her shattered soul, a faint glimmer of hope began to emerge. Since the day Amara appeared in human form, everything in the village began to change. Her overwhelmingly seductive beauty, especially her unnaturally ample bust, made her the center of every gaze. Wherever she went, she left behind lingering stares and a longing that was hard to forget. The men in the village seemed hypnotized by her strange allure. They couldn't resist their desire, even though they knew it was wrong. At first, it was just stolen glances and hushed whispers, but over time their obsession grew, consuming their minds. Fishermen stopped going out to sea. Fields turned yellow and barren, left untended. Craftsmen abandoned their tools, letting their homes fall into disrepair. The laughter of children faded, replaced by arguments and the cries of women left behind. Amara saw it all. She felt the fractures deepening within the village she had once admired from afar. Her eyes, once filled with curiosity, now reflected guilt and pain. She had never imagined that her curse would not only weigh her down, but also lead to the village's collapse. Each lustful stare, every hollow word of adoration, pierced her heart like sharp thorns. Amara began avoiding everyone's gaze. She no longer walked through the village, but instead sat silently by the shore where the waves didn't judge her. Yet the waves could not wash away the torment in her heart. She remembered the pained faces of the women, the lost eyes of the children. Amara's heart clenched with sorrow. This is my fault. All of it is because of me. If I don't find a way to break this curse, everything will completely fall apart. The anguish within her grew. Amara felt as though she was being swallowed by a deep abyss of despair. Loneliness enveloped her, but this time it wasn't because she was different. It was because she had become the source of destruction. Night after night, Amara cried silently, her tears blending with the ocean's salt. She loathed her beauty, which had become chains binding everyone around her. In her despair, Amara began to think of ways to free herself and the village. She remembered the old stories the villagers used to tell about Evelyn, the oldest woman in the village, known for her deep knowledge of the sea's mysteries. A faint glimmer of hope sparked in Amara's mind. The next day, Amara made her way to the small house hidden beneath the canopy of ancient trees. The creaky wooden door slowly opened, revealing Evelyn, her deep-set eyes filled with wisdom. Evelyn looked at Amara, not surprised, only letting out a quiet sigh. I knew this day would come. That curse is not easily broken, but it is not impossible. Amara's voice trembled, choked with emotion. Please help me. I don't want to be the reason this village continues to suffer. I want to save them. Evelyn nodded slowly, her voice deliberate. You must help the men find themselves again. They must remember their values, their responsibilities to their families and to the community. Only when their hearts are cleansed can the curse be lifted. But you must prepare yourself, for no one gives up their desires easily. Amara clenched her hands tightly, her eyes shining with determination. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she could not turn back. The suffering of the villagers was the strongest motivation for her to face her own fears. Within Amara, a fierce resolve ignited. She would not let this curse ruin anyone else's life. She would awaken the goodness buried deep within the men's hearts. She would fight, not with strength, but with patience and compassion. She began her journey to bring light back to the village, step by step, slowly, but resolutely. Though she knew the trials ahead would be daunting, Amara was no longer afraid, because now she wasn't fighting for herself alone, but for all those suffering under the invisible weight of the curse. In her despair, Amara decided to seek out Evelyn, the oldest woman in the village, renowned for her wisdom and deep knowledge of the mystical. Evelyn's house was hidden beneath thick foliage, old and covered in moss, much like the ancient tales she held within. Amara's footsteps were soft on the uneven stone path, but her heart was heavy with worry. Standing before the dilapidated wooden door, Amara's hand trembled slightly before she resolutely knocked. The door creaked open, revealing Evelyn's weathered face, her sharp eyes gleaming with insight. Those piercing eyes seemed to look straight through Amara, as if they already knew the reason for her visit. I knew the day would come when you'd seek me out, Evelyn said in a calm, measured voice, tinged with the fatigue of time. That curse is heavy, my child, but it is not impossible to break. Amara felt her throat tighten. Her voice quivered as she replied, "Please help me. I can't let this village continue to sink into suffering. I don't want to be the reason for its destruction." Evelyn nodded slowly and gestured for Amara to come inside. The room was dim, illuminated only by the soft flicker of candles set in seashell holders. The old rugs and the faint scent of herbs gave the space an air of mystique. Evelyn sat down on a wooden chair, her gaze never leaving Amara. Her words were deliberate, each one carving itself into Amara's mind. The curse doesn't just imprison your body, but it also ensnares the men of this village. Their blind desire has made them forget themselves, their responsibilities to their families and the community. To break the curse, you must help them rediscover their true values. You must make them understand that beauty is fleeting, but character is eternal. Amara lowered her head, her heart heavy with doubt. How could she change those who were so blinded by her beauty? She hesitated, then asked, her voice hesitant, "But how can I do that, Mom? They don't listen to me. They only look at me with lustful eyes. I'm just a cursed being." Evelyn remained silent for a moment before responding thoughtfully. "You cannot force them, but you can awaken within them the things they have forgotten. Start with those who once had passion, those who once knew love and care. You must stir those memories. Let them realize the emptiness of their desires and guide them back to true values." Amara clenched her hands tightly, feeling the fear and uncertainty still lingering in her heart. She feared failure, feared that no one could change, yet deep within her eyes, a faint glimmer of hope flickered. She knew she could not give up. Evelyn rose from her chair, walked over to an old wooden shelf, and retrieved a small, faintly glowing stone. She placed it in Amara's hand and said, "This stone will help you see the truth in their hearts. When you place your hand on someone's chest, you'll know what they think, what they truly desire. But be cautious, for the truth can sometimes be painful." Amara gently clasped the stone in her hand, feeling its warmth seep into her skin. She looked up at Evelyn, her eyes now steadier, more determined. "I will do it. I will awaken them. No matter how hard the road ahead may be, I cannot let this village fall apart." Evelyn gave a faint, knowing smile, a rare gesture but full of meaning. "Remember, Amara, changing hearts is not easy. You will face resistance, perhaps even hatred. But if you remain steadfast and sincere, light will always find its way." Amara left the old house, her heart burdened yet resolute. The sea breeze swept through her hair, carrying the salty tang of the ocean. She knew the challenges ahead would be immense, but every step she took was filled with hope to save the village and herself. She walked slowly, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon where faint light pierced the darkness. In her heart, a silent promise echoed. She would not let this curse continue to dictate the lives of the innocent. From that moment, her journey to liberation, not just for herself, but for the entire village, truly began. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to African Tales Best, and stay tuned for more captivating stories. Amara knew that breaking the curse would not be easy. Every step she took now was not just to save herself, but also to pull the entire village out of the pit of darkness. She decided to begin with the men who were once the pride of the village, those who had lost themselves to blind desire. The first person Amara sought out was Malik. He had once been a brave fisherman, the pillar of his family and the pride of the village. But since her arrival, Malik had abandoned everything. His eyes no longer held the sharpness of someone who had faced the sea's challenges, only a vacant, lost expression. Amara found Malik sitting aimlessly by the docks, his hollow eyes staring into the distance. The sea breeze carried a chill, but it wasn't enough to stir him. Slowly, Amara approached him, her voice gentle yet firm. "Malik, the sea is waiting for you. The waves have lost their master, and the boats are rotting at the docks. Do you remember how it felt to stand amidst the vast ocean?" Startled, Malik turned to look at her, his gaze disoriented. For a moment, he seemed ready to turn away, but her eyes, no longer filled with allure but with sincerity, held him still. Amara continued, her voice resonating like the waves. The sea is not just a place where you earn a living. It is the soul of this village. If the sea dies, so will the village. Are you willing to let everything sink into oblivion? Malik bowed his head, his hands clenching tightly. Memories surged within him. Days spent braving the waves, the sound of the ocean against the hull of his boat, the laughter of his crew, and the proud smiles of his wife and children when he returned with bountiful catches. Malik sighed deeply. I had forgotten all of that. I let it slip too far away. Amara gently placed her hand on his shoulder. Return to the sea, Malik. Not for me, but for your family, for this village. The next morning, Malik's boat cut through the waves. For the first time in months, its sails billowed with life. The villagers watched as he set out, and a small glimmer of hope flickered in their hearts. The second person Amara approached was Marcus, a skilled blacksmith. He had once crafted the best fishing tools, his hands shaping the strength of the village. But now, Marcus's forge was covered in dust, its fire long extinguished. He spent his days sitting idly at his doorstep, his gaze empty. Amara didn't approach him right away. She stood at a distance watching the man who had once been so strong, now a shadow of his former self. After a while, she stepped closer, carrying a torn fishing net in her hands. Marcus, I've heard that you were the only one who could forge unbreakable fishing hooks. This net needs repair, and no one but you can fix it. Marcus lifted his head to look at her, his eyes showing a flicker of doubt. He let out a bitter laugh. I'm no blacksmith anymore. These hands can't create anything but ashes. Amara refused to give up. She gently placed the torn net on his worn workbench. You didn't work just to make a living. You worked to protect this village. If you give up, who will keep the boat strong? Who will help the villagers face the sea? The fire in your forge hasn't died, Marcus. It's only waiting for you to light it again. Marcus stared at the torn net, memories flooding back, the sound of his hammer ringing against metal, the glow of molten steel in the forge. Slowly he rose, stepping toward his old, dust-covered hammer. His hand trembled as he gripped its handle, then tightened with resolve. The sound of his hammer striking metal shattered the silence. Flames roared back to life in the forge, blazing as brightly as the hope rekindled in Marcus's heart. He forged a sturdy fishing hook, not to impress Amara, but to protect the fishing village. The villagers began murmuring when they saw smoke rising from Marcus's forge. A few men quietly joined him, working together to repair broken tools. Bit by bit, life returned to the village. Amara stood from a distance, watching the two men who had once been consumed by desire now rediscover themselves. A sense of relief welled up in her, but she also knew the road ahead was still long. Every man in the village carried his own burdens, and she would have to find a way to reach each one. The pain in Amara's heart had not yet subsided. She knew she couldn't rely on words alone. She needed patience and sincerity. Her beauty, once a chain that bound others, would now become a bridge to awaken the goodness within them. Clutching the stone Evelyn had given her, Amara felt its warmth seep into her heart. Her eyes turned toward the village, still shrouded in darkness, but she no longer felt fear. She would not give up. Each step she took was not just a journey to break the curse, but also a path to rediscover the true worth of humanity. Amara's efforts gradually brought hope to the village. Malik returned to the sea and Marcus rekindled the flames of his forge. But not everyone was so easily changed. In the shadows of men's hearts, dark intentions still brewed. At the center of this resistance was Nathan. Nathan was an ambitious and selfish man. He cared nothing for the village's decay or the suffering of the women. To him, power was everything. He didn't see Amara as a woman struggling with a curse, but as a tool to achieve his ambition to dominate the village. Since Amara's arrival, Nathan had been quietly observing. He noticed how the men in the village were entranced by her and saw it as an opportunity to manipulate them. He planted seeds of doubt and fear in their minds, telling them that Amara was the source of their troubles and the reason their lives were falling apart. "She's not human. She's a witch who's brought calamity to this village," Nathan hissed during secret gatherings, his eyes gleaming with malice. "If we don't act, everything will collapse completely." Under Nathan's provocation, fear spread. The men began whispering among themselves, their suspicious gazes turning toward Amara. The positive changes from Malik and Marcus were not yet strong enough to quell the fear Nathan was stoking. Slowly, he gathered a group of men, those weak and easily swayed, to his side. One misty afternoon, Nathan assembled a crowd in the village square. Standing atop a large stone, his voice boomed. "We've been too weak! We've let one woman shake the foundation of our entire village, don't you see? Since she appeared, everything has fallen into chaos. We must act now before it's too late." The crowd began to waver, murmurs rippling through the gathering. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Nathan pressed on, fanning the flames of hatred. "We will capture her, drive her out of this village so that everything can return to the way it was. Who's with me?" Shouts erupted, and fists clenched around makeshift weapons. Leading the charge, Nathan's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, convinced that power was finally within his grasp. Amara felt the wave of hatred rising. She stood silently by the shore, her gaze fixed on the village. Fear tightened in her chest, but she refused to let it break her. She knew that if she faltered now, all her efforts would be for nothing. Heavy footsteps echoed. The mob, led by Nathan, approached with tense faces and hostile eyes. Pointing at Amara, Nathan's voice thundered, "Seize her! She's the cause of it all!" But just as the men stepped forward, a familiar figure moved to stand in front of Amara. It was Malik. He stood firm, his eyes resolute. "No one will lay a hand on her!" Marcus joined him, gripping his blacksmith's hammer tightly. His voice rang out, strong and unwavering. "Have you all forgotten who helped us? She helped me find myself again. She brought Malik back to the sea. Are you so blinded that you can't see that?" The crowd hesitated, Malik and Marcus's words cutting through the fog of doubt. Some men lowered their heads, their expressions uncertain. The murmurs began to die down. Nathan clenched his fists, his voice dripping with venom. "You've been bewitched. She's using sorcery to deceive you all." But Malik stepped forward, locking eyes with Nathan. "If she's using sorcery, then how did I find my way back to my family, to the sea? What kind of sorcery can awaken such things? Or is it only her sincerity that could have done that?" Nathan fell silent, his arguments crumbling under Malik's conviction. The crowd grew quiet, many looking at each other with confusion and shame. The anger that had consumed them began to dissipate, replaced by clarity. Refusing to accept defeat, Nathan pulled out a small knife, its blade gleaming in the pale sunlight. With a roar, he charged at Amara. But before he could reach her, Marcus blocked him with his hammer. The clash of metal rang out, sharp and jarring. "Stop this, Nathan!" Marcus shouted. Nathan staggered back, his eyes burning with fury, but tinged with fear. He knew he had lost. The crowd began to disperse, the men lowering their weapons as their minds cleared. Malik turned to Amara and gave her a nod. "We won't let you face this alone anymore." Amara's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she felt a strength that didn't come from her beauty, but from trust and compassion. The fear in her heart dissolved, replaced by determination. But Amara knew the battle was far from over. Nathan had failed, but the hearts of the villagers were still fragile, easily swayed. She had to continue her journey not just to save herself, but to protect the village from the shadows of ambition and greed. Nathan refused to accept defeat. His eyes burned with madness, the flames of rage consuming his reason. In a moment of blind hatred, he pulled a sharp dagger from his cloak, the steel glinting under the pale light of the setting sun. He charged straight toward Amara, his heavy footsteps filled with unwavering resolve, as if destroying her would restore everything to the way it was. A startled scream rose from the crowd. Malik and Marcus were quick to react, but it was too late. The blade was already within an arm's length of Amara. But Amara did not run. She did not fight back. She stood still, her deep eyes gazing at Nathan, not with fear, but with compassion. In that moment of astonishment, she opened her arms and embraced him tightly. Nathan froze. The dagger stopped mid-air. His fury was stilled by the gentleness of her embrace. A chilling sensation radiated from Amara, not the cold of her body, but the chilling emptiness of the soul. It was the stark loneliness, the aching sorrow of a heart drowned in desire. Amara said nothing. She allowed Nathan to feel everything, the isolation, the hollowness, the futility of the ambitions he had chased. Each beat of her heart echoed in his chest, reminding him of all that he had lost. Nathan began to tremble. The dagger slipped from his hand, clattering onto the ground with a hollow sound. His eyes widened, filled with shock and confusion. His arms fell limply to his sides, and he collapsed onto the cold earth. What have I done? Nathan whispered, his voice cracking. He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time, realizing the depth of his wrongdoings. In his bewildered gaze, for the first time, a spark of regret flickered. At that very moment, a soft, radiant light enveloped Amara. Her body began to transform. Her skin shimmered like pearls, her long black hair flowing once again like the ocean's current. Her slender legs faded, replaced by a glimmering mermaid's tail, sparkling with the colours of the sea. The curse had been lifted. The villagers were stunned. They stood silent, witnessing the miraculous transformation, their eyes filled with awe and emotion. No longer did anyone look at Amara with lust or fear. Instead, they gazed upon her with respect and understanding. Malik stepped forward, his eyes soft with gratitude. You endured all of this for us, for this village. Marcus placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder, his tone no longer angry but filled with empathy. Ambition isn't inherently bad, but when it blinds one's conscience, it destroys everything. Stand up, Nathan. Don't let yourself be consumed by regret. Nathan nodded faintly, his eyes reddened with unshed tears. He knew he had done wrong, but now he had the chance to make amends. Amara quietly looked around the village. She was no longer the cursed one, nor the source of pain. She had become the one who helped them see the truth, that outer beauty is fleeting, but kindness and respect are eternal values. The villagers began to come together again. The men who had once been lost in desire returned to their families and their work. They bowed their heads in apology to the wives and children they had neglected. Warmth began to spread throughout the village. Amara turned to face the ocean. The gentle waves lapped at the shore as if whispering a welcome back to her. Yet she did not step into the water. She was no longer an outsider. Her heart was now bound to this village. Malik approached her and asked softly, "You're not going back to the ocean?" Amara smiled faintly, her gaze distant yet serene. "The ocean is my home, but my heart belongs here. I will stay, not to be defined by a curse, but to protect the values I have discovered." The villagers bowed before her, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. They understood now that only love, kindness, and mutual respect could preserve the peace they had regained. The sea breeze swept through, carrying the salty tang of the ocean, mingled with the warmth of human connection. Amara closed her eyes, savouring the breath of a new life. The curse had been lifted, but her journey was just beginning. A journey no longer marked by loneliness, but filled with hope and love. The coastal village slowly came back to life. The fields turned green once more. The boats unfurled their sails and returned to the sea, and the lively sounds of laughter and conversation echoed through the narrow alleyways. The men who had once been lost in blind desire returned to their work, cared for their families, and rebuilt the lives that had teetered on the brink of collapse. They were no longer slaves to their lusts, but strong men who understood love and appreciated the true value of life. Amara, the mermaid who had once been cursed, had now become a symbol of change and growth. She was no longer a haunting reminder of lust, but an inspiring beacon of courage and forgiveness. Occasionally, she appeared on the beach, her distant eyes gazing out toward the ocean that had once been her home. The sea breeze swept through her long black hair, carrying with it whispers of the journey she had endured. The villagers continued to share Amara's story with the next generation, teaching it as a profound lesson on self-respect, responsibility, and genuine love. Children gathered around the elders, listening intently to the tale of the mermaid who bravely faced her pain and overcame her curse to save the entire village. Her story became more than just a legend. It was a guiding light for how people should treat one another. But had everything truly come to an end? One night, when the fishing village lay peacefully asleep, Amara stood atop a large rock staring out at the sea. The waves lapped gently against the shore as though whispering secrets. Suddenly, in the distance, a glimmer of emerald light flickered from the depths of the ocean. Amara narrowed her eyes, the glint of worry reflecting in them. This was no ordinary light. Something was awakening beneath the waves, something even Amara had never encountered. The sea breeze grew colder, carrying with it an ominous chill. Amara felt her heartbeat quicken, not from fear but from caution. She knew that peace was sometimes a fragile facade, concealing the storms that brewed below. "The curse has been lifted, but the darkness hasn't fully left this place," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the strange light. A feeling both familiar and foreign stirred within her. Was some force watching her? Or was a new danger awaiting the peaceful village? Beneath the ocean's surface, black waves churned ominously. A voice, faint yet chilling, whispered through the sea breeze. "Did you think you were truly free, Amara? The darkness has only just begun." Amara clenched her fists, her eyes steady with determination. She knew her journey was far from over. Mysteries remained unsolved, and she would not let anything shatter the peace she and the villagers had fought so hard, with blood and tears, to reclaim. If you're eager to find out what awaits Amara next, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel to follow the story's thrilling continuation. Turn on notifications to explore more magical and inspiring tales in our extraordinary world. What do you think lies beneath the ocean's depths, waiting for Amara? Let us know in the comments below. Outer beauty may captivate the senses, but only character and sincere love hold eternal value. Cherish what lies deep within the soul, for it is the light that guides us. The story isn't over yet. Let's continue this journey together.